Well, this session would be manned by Lloyd, Mathias, angel investor and business strategist. With that, Lloyd, I'm handing over the big responsibility of managing the fireworks of the panel to you. Over to you.
Thank you, Shika, and what a delight to be part of this great panel. So good afternoon, everyone. And as Shika just said, customer experience in a sense is the new frontier, right? So a lot of business differentiators today, they play on various parameters, on their business skills, on their core IP. But increasingly what one is seeing is that customer experience is becoming one of the key discriminators to a modern business. And as more and more businesses are increasingly getting their focus on the online part of it, specifically given the last few months and the disruption to life as we know it, I think the importance of customer experience is being brought to bear in a radically different way. Simultaneously, another important thing is happening is that with the growth in technologies, with big play in terms of data, in terms of AI and machine learning, I think what we are seeing is a big step jump in the way customer experience is being perceived. If you look back at about 5-7 years, a lot of the customer experience was really about automation. How do we move things to kind of reduce cost? I think today the emphasis has shifted more towards adding value. How do you make the whole experience with the customer richer, right? So I'd like to welcome everyone to this session on customer experience in 2025. At its core, customer experience is a way that the customer perceives or interacts with a business or a brand. Now, it could happen in various ways, right? Visiting a website, browsing products on display, going through a checkout process physically in a store, reading an email from a company, interacting with a company employee, calling a business at a call center, unpacking a shipping order. There are a whole lot of touch points that every consumer, kind of sees a brand in, right? And at each of these points, it's important that the customer gets the right kind of experience and feel that plays up his experience with the particular brand and builds a long-term relationship, right? Eventually, as we all understand, a business is all about retaining customers and ensuring you get good value for them, and therefore maintaining them across the customer life cycle. We have a great panel from a wide section of industries. So, Shika just introduced, but just to give you a quick sense, there's, Anand Tuli, who comes from Vedantu. So a great perspective on edutech, which, as you can see, is, seeing a huge boom. One is hearing of the valuations of the big players, but I think that's a great space. And then, of course, there's the backbone to most technologies is IT and, IT-related services and technology in general. And we've got two great companies represented there. There's Dell, AMC, and Microsoft. So we have Tarun from Dell, and we've got Swapna from Microsoft. So they'll bring the whole perspective of how the technology sector, IT, is really managing and being at the cutting edge of customer experience. We have a fabulous representation from Telecom in terms of Madhu. She's with Jio right now, but she's had great track across telecom companies, Airtel, Telenor, Escotel, and that's another domain where customer experience is a very, very, very critical discriminator. And then, of course, from financial services, we've got Manish from Aegon Life. And there again, in financial services, one is seeing, the importance of the whole customer experience play. What I'll do is I'm just going to quickly get across to all our panelists and get a few thoughts in terms of what is the play that they are seeing in terms of customer experience currently in their organizations. And what are the key things that they see is going to play out over the next few years. So maybe I could start off with you, Swapna, to kind of share a little bit of what Microsoft is up to in terms of the whole CX.
Sure, Lloyd. And first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to my panelists. A pleasure to be here with you on this panel. And good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate the time. I actually presented the keynote on the same topic, Lloyd, and I went through a 6 to 7 case studies, and a lot of them in India, which is really heartwarming because we're seeing Indian businesses transform very quickly in this pandemic, right? And customer experience is at the heart of that transformation. So whether you take our healthcare customers, they're thinking about how to bring in a 360-degree experience to the patient when they come in through any interface, pharmacy, hospital, otherwise, right? Diagnostics to treatment. If you look at our banking customers, their interfaces, even in insurance, by the way, their interfaces to the customer through call or omni-channel, they're looking at how to improve that, reduce the customer wait time, bring relevance to the conversations, and lot of use of AI. You will see speech-to-text services being used, local languages with Hindi, Gujarati, Telugu, translating those languages, doing sentiment analysis on the conversation, and then really addressing the needs of their customers in all B2C type environments. Retail, they're also doing post-call log analysis and understanding how the conversation went. Did the agent actually have a relevant conversation with the customer, and train their agents accordingly? So I'll keep my answer short, but really a lot of use of AI services across the verticals.
Thanks, Swapna. So interesting, the fact that technology is working closely with the front end to kind of deploy great value. I'm just next going to get Anand in. And Anand, we've seen, a kind of sea change literally in 2020. Thanks to the pandemic at one level, conference calling and Zoom and, things like this were really a function of office workers. And today it's not uncommon to see 5-year-olds, attend class with teachers online. It's not uncommon to have, 80-year-old grandparents, on family Zoom calls. So the world has kind of changed dramatically. And I think one sector that's seen, exponential change in a manner of speaking is really the whole edutech sector. Now, Vedantu being an online learning platform, what are the things that you've seen happen in the last few months, and how does customer experience make that big difference as you go along?
Right. So thanks, Lloyd, for bringing this team together. I'm looking forward to getting enlightened and learn from this group. Coming back to the question, Lloyd, right? So from if you see education per se, right? What is the value transfer which is happening over the digital platform? One is engagement and second is learning, right? Students should feel good. They should be happy at the end of the class, right? Because there's nobody stopping them. There are no walls to stop them from switching that off, right? The second part is learning, of course, right? Every session counts, right? And so it's a if you take, for example, a 10th course or sixth grade course or a JE preparation, right? It's a sum total of what happens in every session, right? The learning, right? What we have seen is, right, especially during the COVID, right, Lloyd, people are more likely to adopt this as something as a mainstream, right? Or that the adoption barrier has gone low, right? What I would like to believe, the value was always there in terms of engagement and learning, right? We have had great results, for example, for last 3 years, right? But with the barriers coming low, what the challenges which we are facing now is all the students are different, right? You're getting many more kinds of students, many more expectations from the kind of engagement they want and the kind of learning they want, and that is where customer experience is changing, right? Since customer expectation from the same platform is getting varied, right? The primary challenge comes in, how do you go about and meet those expectations? And this is how I see customer experience, right? A superlative customer experience is nothing but what you also said, right? What is the perceived value and what exactly do you feel, right? Or what are the expectations, right? And how well are you meeting those expectations, right? And that is the sea change which we have seen, right, in last 4 to 6 months, right? And that is where tech comes into picture, right? Identifying those shades of expectations, both in engagement vector and learning vector, right? That is where data analytics and AI, which Swapna was talking about, right? It's very difficult, majorly because it's very intangible, right? Both the value sources of value transfer, both sources of value proposition are intangible, right? And that's where AI comes into picture, right? Identifying and delivering those, then, right? If a student needs more doubts versus somebody needs more teacher interaction, right? believe me, it's very hard to pick that up from how customer is behaving, and sometimes they do not know, right, what would lead to what they would feel as a superlative customer experience, right? So from that particular purpose, right, as we are growing, as we are bringing in more kinds of students, bringing in more products, right, delivering better value, possibly enhancing our ability to service them both through our product and through our staff, right? That is where tech comes into picture, right? I believe going forward, it would be the tech which would be the differentiator, and not really the price bits, especially in the ed tech, right? It's like बाद में जाके that is what we call in Vedantu, right? कि मजा आएगा तो समझ आएगा, and समझ आएगा तो मजा आएगा. These are the only two components. It's just that कि किसको कितना क्या आ रहा है. The idea is to have a real good control over that, and that is what I would believe is would define good customer experience in EdTech.
Well said, Anand. Thank you so much. That's a very interesting perspective. I'm going to take this across to Madhu next. And Madhu, I mean, just for the audience, a quick background is that clearly we know that telecom has seen a lot of consolidation, right? Now we've got three kind of private sector players and one government player in Jio, Vodafone, Idea, and Airtel, and of course there's the BSNL, MSNL combined. So in this consolidation, telecom has reached the next phase. Let's say 10 years back, it was still land grab. It was about customer acquisitions. It was about going after the new customer. I think now we've got kind of, key players. And the big challenge for telcos, and Madhu's right at the heart of it, is really the whole usage and retention, or UNR as it's often called, is how do you keep customers within your fold, and how do you minimize this whole churn, right? The fact that every day the customer is being wooed by a new offer, a new tariff plan, a bigger discount, of some freebies thrown in. So this whole concept of UNR is becoming, in a sense, the key function or the kind of cornerstone within the telcos. Madhu, it would be nice if you can share your experiences or your telecom journey in terms of how customer experience has evolved and how it's playing an increasing larger part in the telecom growth story.
Hi. First of all, I would like to thank ET and all the tech partners to have me here. It's my pleasure to be empaneled with such an interesting group of people. Okay, I would like to quickly talk about telecom domain and then would like to move to digital operator or e-com player, because if you talk about customer experience and technology, I think a lot of work happening, and through my industry peer group, I've been part and parcel. So if you talk about telecom, yes, thanks to Jio, now tariffs are standard. There's not much, and if you talk about the pricing, etc., there's not much to lure customer. However, the width of services is driving the customer retention, and that has been the front career if you talk about. However, if you talk about customer experience, and since you talk about UNR or customer lifetime value management, I think one thing which has been constantly driving, whether be it telecom or be it any digital operator like YouTube, Googles of the world, or Amazon of the world, I think innovation is the only mindset with technology and empathy at the core of it. We talk about, let's say, telling brand story is an art, but what to tell, who to tell, when to tell, it completely gets driven by AI and machine learning. If you talk about artificial intelligence, the kind of use cases we have seen as a marketer, it's no longer artificial and it's much more intelligent than what it was perceived to be. And yes, at that point in time, being from telecom plays an important role, because at any point in time, if you talk about any digital journey, if you talk about any AI, ML, if you talk about the identity or a unique identifier, which every customer is carrying as a mobile number. So we as a mobile carrier get to see many more interactions. If you talk about customer segmentation, then who are digital savvy customer, who are digital native, we end up playing with all that. So hence, being a telecom value-based segmentation, who are digital freak, etc., that we continue to work on. But if we talk about the digital disruption which has happened in the last 6 months, and especially in context of 2025, I think clearly the way we have evolved in last few years is that 4P of marketing, which is product, place, promotion, and price. There's a fifth P which has been added, and that's personalization. And in digital disruption, that fifth P has changed the dynamism of earlier 4Ps also. So at any point in time, even if whatever product you are offering to the customer, that has to be basis customer preference or his past usage analysis or his behavior on social media. At any point in time, if customer is surfing any e-commerce player, then what are the product propensity or what are the recommendation engine is supposed to be, showing it to the customer, what are the smart searches, etc., etc. Everything gets enabled by AI and ML of the world. Just to give you a live example that how does it work, I will just, I have been part of a industry task force with Adobe when Adobe had launched a project wherein, or a live project wherein basis the mobile number, they were analyzing the cookies associated with it, and they were analyzing the customer behavior over social media sites like Google, YouTube, FB. Just to give you an idea that at any point in time, the FB is still not, right now at least, not the popular, social media platform. However, in 1 minute on FB, there are 1,45,000 people who are uploading the pics, and there are 2,39,000 updates which are happening. So that's the kind of variety of data or the customer sentiments it is having. Now, basis the browser which was attached to the mobile, they analyzed the customer behavior and bucketed the customer into various customer segmentation, which were like evolved customer segments, which were taking into consideration the customer purchase behavior. If let's say customer has been to Amazon of the world, etc., etc., then if customer returned, then what were the reasons for that? So basically capturing the customer preferences in terms of product, in terms of style, customer disliking, everything. And on the basis of that, they worked out an online segmentation. Now, in addition to that, and that was a cloud-based solution. In addition to that, they looked at the offline customer segmentation. And once they marry the both and offer the product and services to the customer, the throughput or the uptake was very, very high. So in the times to come, I think, there'll be cloud-based solution. So at any point in time, if there's a customer profiling or any technical provider is being able to provide online segmentation, which is last 7 to 15 days customer behavior. And in addition to that, if you capture the customer behavior on your app or whatever has been the experience with your company, and then corresponding to that, offer a end-to-end integrated capability or experience to the customer, wherein at any point in time, if customer logs on to your site, then what is the customer journey? What are the product variants which are shown to the customer? What is the recommendation engine, products and services throws off to? What is the contextual advertising? What are the promo shots basis the sentiments which has been captured? So I think in 2025, so right now we have started using AI ML. In the times to come, there'll be 5G advent when everything will be connected, everything will be intelligent. So at that point in time, there'll be a lot more customer touch point to capture the customer preferences and accordingly segment the customer and take it forward. So I think it's a very interesting journey. Right now, it's primarily AI and ML based, whereas in the times to come with 5G, with Internet of Things, with conversational chatbot. So conversational chatbot has already been triggered, and it's in limited edition is still a way of life. I think we will end up getting into very, very interesting and scientific way of customer experience.
Great perspective, Madhu. Thank you so much. And that's a good segue actually to bring Manish in, because if you look at the journey in terms of how telecom has evolved over the last 2 decades, and parallelly look at the whole financial sector or fintech in a more general sense, but specifically insurance, the traditional form of insurance was really about having agents, fan the country and meeting people, real time in the flesh. And today, a lot of that has virtually gone online. But more importantly, I think it's also about frontline insurance folks being fully empowered. I mean, there's that one smartphone where he can calculate your premium, he can do your extension, he can pretty much do everything. He can accept payment, he can issue your receipt. So short of giving you a physical premium certificate, I mean, he can do the entire experience. Manish, it'd be good if you can share, what are the things that an organization like Aegon Life is doing to win in the customer experience space.
Thanks, Lloyd. Very interesting question. Actually, the way you compared telecom to insurance, I would like to say that up till about a year ago, most insurance companies were where telecom was about 5 to 8 years ago. This last 1 year has actually helped us skip, hop and jump multiple levels because of the kind of complications we had. We were always writing risk and a high amount of risk, which also meant that we had to do medical risk assessment without doing medicals. We were not meeting customers in the last 1 year. So the adaptation into this industry has been immense. I'll give you examples of how suddenly from doing medicals, even reinsurers started adjusting to the reality of getting information from social media platforms, from risk scores from the credit bureaus, and started analyzing the linkage of that to mortality. Now, all this has changed the way telecom players have been working on it. Thankfully, Aegon was always at the forefront of being direct and being digital. We were the first company to actually have a completely online sales process. So from there, we moved on. The movement was easier. Having said that, what we have seen in last 1 year is uptake of insurance by very small tier 3 consumers. We have associated ourselves with, say, Flipkart and Paytm, and we have seen an uptake of low value insurance, which was a few questions only and a fully non-assisted buying. Now that's a new trend we are seeing. So that's one place where we are actually putting a lot of effort to improve customer experience, because the value chain has completely changed. It is not the same value chain with an agent and with a field executive going and talking to the customer. You have a 30-second window to actually impress the customer with your product. And there we have seen and we've experimented with hyper-personalized videos, which manage up to about 50,000 different combinations of cities, gender, age segment, and language. And we've seen a good uptake of people understanding products related to COVID, for example, and buying a product worth about 6,000 to 8,000 rupees, which costs that's the annual premium, buying it without really any help. So this has been a year of surprises for us in that sense. It has also pushed us to think in different directions to actually do financial assessment of a risk, or even going and finding, knowing more about the customer. So sadly, for a long time, the regulators were not really allowing us to use Aadhaar because of the reasons all known to all of us. But because of COVID, that changed, and suddenly we are allowed to use it for KYC, but KYC is not enough for us. So what else do we get to know about the customer? So we are working on scores, using AI and machine learning to actually go back and see what the underwriter would have done for a particular profile in past years, running data sets to come out with cohorts of different kinds and process that information. That's on the way customer experience in terms of buying is changing. Even consumption of insurance after you've bought insurance is changing significantly. And work from home is a reality for the forthcoming future. And the old channels of calls and emails will not really continue. And again, I'm talking about an insurance customer who while he has seen enough and more digital interventions across different products, for financial services, he does not still trust technology. And that too, something like insurance, which is so intangible that only the nominee is the eventual benefactor in that. It's not the person who's paying the premium. So suddenly to actually create that trust with the customer becomes difficult. And therefore, we are looking at using technology for engagement. So that's one. Last one, which I really want to point out to, is the fact that with the introduction of various digital products around the customer, the expectation of a digital product from insurance also is increasing. With that, you have to start, you have to test and learn and release products at a very fast pace. Old core systems, the way they work, they cannot really deliver it. So you need a completely API-based, cloud-based core system which can actually support launch and testing of a new product in record time. So I'll tell you, till about 3 years ago, Aegon used to take close to about 6 months to launch a product. We are talking about 2 weeks kind of a time to launch a new product, set it up, and get it ready for sales. And therefore, a lot of reusability comes in. Therefore, you have to go to the API economy and ensure that you start reusing most of the components you create with very minor customization. So those are my 2 cents. Of course, if there is any other question, I can, of course, be happy to answer that.
Fabulous perspective, Manish. Thank you for sharing that. I think makes a lot of sense. And clearly, like you said, just like EdTech, I think insurance and FinTech in general has again leapfrogged in technology and in customer experience over the last 8 or 9 months. Just the very fact that the existing business model has got disrupted. I next want to come to Tarun and to a business I understand in a sense. And just to take one point from what you said, Manish, is about changing customer expectations. Is that when I started my career in Pepsi, I remember we used to do 3 campaigns a year, and then when I was doing the CMO role at HP in India, between PC and printers, we typically ran between 18 to 20 campaigns a year. So suddenly you were working at a campaign every fortnight, so to speak, and life was difficult. And therefore, Tarun, and in the context of Dell, and specifically in the function that you run, which is, you handle the entire channel marketing, and the traditional understanding of channel marketing in the IT or the PC kind of space is those, large retailers in, the Nehru Place and the Lamington Roads of the world. And a lot of that is really a physical business, right? Today, a lot of it has gone online, but more importantly, with a lot of consumers making up their minds about which PC to purchase or what technology investment to make, almost all of that is happening online. All the research, all the checking back with friends, the word of mouth is happening. The purchase may happen online or offline, and therefore customer experience is now becoming a very, very critical part of that entire exercise. So maybe you want to share a little bit of your thoughts and what's Dell's thinking on the whole customer experience.
Sure, Lloyd. There are 2 perspectives from where Dell sees the customer's experience, right? You spoke about the consumer market, you spoke about Nehru Place, you spoke about Lamington Road, and definitely research shows that 60 to 70% users have kind of made up their mind what product they want to buy before they walk into the shop, right? So pre-purchase customer experience has kind of gone to the online space in a larger fraternity, and that's applicable not just to the PCs, that's applicable to the larger IT infrastructure, that's applicable to the car, that's applicable to insurance and whatnot, right? Be it consumer side or be it commercial side of the business. And I represent the commercial side where I work with larger distributors, system integrators, value-added resellers who work with not just on the PCs business, but also on the data center side of business, right? For us, customer experience has got 2 perspectives, and I'm sure it's applicable for all of us over here on the panel. One is product, second is service, right? Product, and I think everybody spoke about product. Are we able to provide an omnichannel experience? Swapna spoke about, Madhu spoke about personalization at the customer level. Manish spoke about customization at the product level, right? So that is something that you can deliver at the product level, right? But service, are we able to provide the right service to the customers or to the users? That will determine who is going to win the customer experience battle 4 to 5 years down the line. Are we able to provide an omnichannel experience? I think the tools integrations are able to provide that. Are we able to ease the customers or the user's life? When I talk about my customers, I talk about not just the person who is buying the infrastructure, who's buying the IT, who's not the person who's signing on the check, but also the person who is using the PC or the person who is the system administrator in the data center. Are we making his experience easy for him to use the technology? Companies like Dell, companies like, for example, Jio or even for Vedantu, right? Do we have enough, or 3 years down the line, are we going to have enough predictive integrated tools with real-time agents to predict whether there are going to be some challenges that the customer is going to face? And if yes, are these tools going to be able to fix that automatically for the customer. Companies which are able to do that, I'm proud to say that yes, we have got various tools, various softwares that the people are able to use, and that has reduced the manual hard work for our users significantly. That is something that the companies need to start working on. 3 to 5 years down the line, customers are going to expect this kind of personalization, this kind of a white glove service from all the service providers or the product providers. As Anand said, entry barriers have come down significantly, right? 20 years ago, we or nobody in our family would have been able to afford a flight from Delhi to Mumbai, let alone a foreign vacation, right? The entry barriers are coming down so significantly that 5 years down the line, your customer base is going to be 5-fold or maybe 10-fold. That's a double-edged sword for all of us. Are you prepared? Are you ready to get that larger customer base? Which means that more customers are going to buy from you and more customers are going to rate you, right? So the recommendation is, or the thought is, are you able to get that personalized white glove treatment 4 or 5 years down the line for your users to make their life easy? That is going to determine the customer experience at that point of time in 2025.
Great, Tarun. I think that is going to be very critical as far as the customer experience goes. I'm just going to quickly ask a few questions on certain specific topics that have been raised. And I think the first one really to you, Anand, is a very key part is how do you measure the impact of customer service? What are the metrics that you deploy to measure CX? And in a sense, how can you benchmark your customer experience versus your competitors? Right? It's a digital world out there. Switching is a click away. How do you measure customer experience?
Rather than answering it as a few years back, let me put it this way, right? At least until a couple of years back, Lloyd, right? The true measure was retention and NPS, right? Eventually, it was that, right? And that was primarily the benchmark. But as Tarun said and Manish said, right? Now the customer experience is not only about the usage, right? It's not only about the post order journey, right? As Manish was saying, when insurance went into auto sales, so it's about what kind of customer, how our customer buying behaviors are changing, right? How are customers finding about you, right? How are they using the product was always the part of it, right? How are you interacting with? How are you building those relationships beyond? Even if they do not want to buy, usual conversion rates for e-commerce is 1% to 2%, right? So actually, out of 100 people, only one is your customer, right? And NPS and repeat rates are only limited to those 1%. It cannot be in the going world, right? The idea from the measurement perspective, right? The idea is we have to break it down in terms of journeys, right? How many people are discovering us? How are they discovering us, right? And after discovering us, how are they interacting with the service layer or the product layer, right? As Tarun said, service becomes key challenge because that's managing the customer experience through it. Personalizing service on the service layer, product it's still easier because the tech barriers have gone down low, right? But personalizing service, that's where the challenge comes in, right? And so rather than having one metric there, now what we do is we look at the overall customer journey, right? We look at things in terms of what customer expectations are, what is the jobs to be done at different touch points at different phases of those customer journey, right? And then derive those metrics, right? For example, how many organic customers are coming in, right? Vis-a-vis us versus competitors, right? That tells us in terms of how's our word of mouth and how exactly people are discovering us, right?
Yeah, so refreshing because you're right, because I've been saying till well into say 2009-10, most service organizations like Telecom really measured their kind of customer experience metric by the two things, the net promoter score and their retention. right? So that was it. I mean, now that we're going into the finer aspects is such a refreshing change because you're actually looking at, finer points in the customer behavior through his life cycle, through the journey, and relating that. And that's such a remarkable part. I'm going to take it across to Swapna to get her perspective. And Swapna, one of the things that customers always crib about is this whole balance between, personalization and privacy. So everyone wants that, total intuitive experience, right? When I'm searching for item X on Amazon, I want something to pop up which is very similar, hopefully with a better price, and that's great. But at some point, customers say, oh my God, do they know too much about me? Are they prying into my life? So how do you get this balance between, automation, personalization, and privacy right?
Great question, Lloyd. I just want to add on to the previous question that usage is another metric that is very important today, right? Because most customers actually use multiple services of the same type, right? So they might buy, for example, car insurance from one place, life insurance from another place. Are they using more of my services is also a very important metric too. But yeah, going back to your original question, security, and I mentioned this in the panel, so I'm very glad you brought this up. There are organizations which over pivot on customer experience and forget security. So the platform that you choose to enable a great customer experience, and you're bringing in data sets from how the customer is behaving in the outside domain, right? In social media or other locations. You're also creating a unified view of the customer within the organization. Believe it or not, even within the organization, many organizations don't have a single view of their customer. There are multiple databases, multiple applications, so on. As you build that, how do you depersonalize the information before it actually feeds into machine learning algorithms? And you don't allow bias to enter those machine learning algorithms. The logic that goes into these algorithms, it's very important that I call it de-biasing the data, right? Gender, age, there are so many metrics that could control how this algorithm could behave. That's number one. Because the data that goes in actually determines how the machine learning algorithm is going to behave. So not compromising on security, ensuring that the data that is being used to govern how these algorithms behave is de-biased, right? Number three is when you collect this data, you're really ensuring that access to this data is controlled by strict governance policies. Many countries have very strict governance policies. For example, if you look at healthcare, they have HIPAA, they have FHLS, if I get that right, HL7. Each industry has its own compliance policies to access that data. And those have to be met. So the platform you choose really governs the level of security you're going to provide. The fact that you are not compromising on anyone's privacy, and that data is really used in an unbiased way to give you a result which is hyper-personalized to a large extent, but not visible to someone who doesn't need to see it. So for example, if you look at relationship managers in banks, many of our banking customers ask us that when the relationship manager is sitting in front of the person, they need to get very good recommendations for that particular person. So that means we should know the person's salary range. We should know if the person has changed the job, right? So you're bringing in LinkedIn, you're possibly bringing in their pay stubs. So much information has to come in to bring in that personalized recommendation. But that only the recommendation should be visible to the relationship manager. Everything behind doesn't need to be visible. So it's really putting locks and controls in the right places.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a tough challenge because, like I said, consumers either think that a brand sometimes is overdoing it and, intruding into his private life. At the same time, they want a seamless personalization experience. So I'm taking this across to Madhu. And Madhu, in the context of personalization being the key, specifically in a kind of challenging telecom environment where, pricing has now become an equalizer and there's so much of intense competition. How do you account for different customer segments and life stages, right? So, the same service of Jio is being sold across to Gen Z, to millennials, to Gen X, to baby boomers, people across the age spectrum, and different consumers have different needs, right? For younger people, a lot more is, let's say, YouTube and short format videos. For maybe slightly older people, it's really about enjoying the large screen experience through Netflix or Hotstar or Amazon Prime. For a lot of people, it's really about listening to music on the move. So how do you kind of segment the offering and ensure that your customer experience relatively remains standard across various customer segments?
Okay, so I will just give you industry perspective.
Sure.
So as far as telecom is concerned, so I think one thing which becomes very important is value-based segmentation, because rather than targeting customer with high profile or high potential, it's important to recognize your own base and continuously to ensure by doing cross-sell and upsell by offering them differential pricing without discounting it into the market to increase your RMS with that customer. And hence, that's the way nowadays, the telcos talk about CMS and RMS. Otherwise, organically, it has been growing. Whereas, and since, as you rightly said, that price, is an equalizer and there's no differentiation. So hence, your products and services become a differentiator. And for giving product and services, value-based segmentation is one important thing. Otherwise, if you talk about, see, as we talked about, telecom has become like off-the-shelf offering. So most of the telco right now are aspiring into the journey of flourishing as a digital operator, wherein what we are saying is that we need to identify as what is the customer honor, and accordingly, what are the add-on stuff we can offer it to them. So if we talk about in B2C domain, if we talk about that customer is digital native, then we think about how do we, club Netflix or Sony and all these packs, etc. So that we look at the customer interest and accordingly, either for retention along with the recharges or otherwise we offer it to the customer.
Perfect.
If we talk about enterprise, we look at the advanced IT and telecom services, and usually people are getting into a cohort kind of a proposition, and wherein we are trying to grow the customer. However, I think, as I talked about in the times to come, and as Tarun also talked about, that how do you differentiate from a small time or let's say from an Nehru Place to somebody as structure at Microsoft or Dell of the words. I think value addition. So for example, we're talking about 5G. We're talking about always connected PCs. We're talking about Internet of the Things. We are talking about smart city. We are talking about connected cars. So these are the enablers using which, so right now, if you talk about customer segmentation is maybe only 2 dimension. There's a third dimension.
Further, more deeper analysis of.
Yeah, basis 5G, the kind of touch points you have, Internet of Things, the kind of customer footprint and interest you get, I think it will get multifold, and at that point in time, that play will trigger in, and that will basically create the volumes for professional players like Dell, Microsoft, telecom player, digital operators of the world, and so on. So for all that, I think in the times to come, a cloud-based solution or a hybrid solution. So even if I'm talking about AI and ML, the plugin wherein, basis the social sites, the customer profiling is also done. As Swapna rightly said, that we don't have to be invading into customer privacy. So without doing that, if you have a 360-degree customer view across all social media sites, and accordingly you segment the customer, and then depending on product, you club the online segmentation and offline segmentation. And you create a segmentation basis that. I think that's the way, and especially by 2025, that will be the way of life.
Thanks for sharing, Madhu. That's a great perspective. Manish, I quickly want to ask you one question. What is the major bottleneck you face in implementing technology to deliver a smooth customer experience? I mean, do you see any big bottlenecks?
I think the only challenge which we see here is to really bridge the gap between legacy customers and legacy systems versus what you're acquiring now. This is for 2 reasons. Like I told you, Aegon went with a complete overhaul and transformation into digital acquisition and direct to customers. And we have a large book of customers who were acquired by agents and in the primitive way of, sorry for calling it primitive, but the old ways of really filling in manual forms and getting details right. Now, there are completely two different set of customers. I think finding the right kind of resources to actually really focus on new while ensuring that you bridge the gap between old and new and service the customers the same way is one concern, I think, which bothers us when it comes to really dealing with customer in the right way. I think that's the answer, short answer from my side.
I think one last question, and we're rapidly running out of time, but I just want to take this to you, Tarun. Tarun, do you see any big shift either in technology vis-a-vis customer experience over the next couple of years? Something that will radically change things. I mean, 5G, I guess, is one obvious thing, but anything that you see that would be relevant to our audience?
Sure, Lloyd. See, from technology perspective, there are so many tools, so much of platform options that have become available to the customers, right? I don't want to bore the entire panel here with the technical mumbo jumbo like private clouds, hybrid clouds, so on and so forth, right? But from a normal humans understanding perspective, suffice it to say that the compute and the storage powers that the new technology infrastructure, be it PCs, be it servers, be it the data center equipments, have grown to such an extent that the companies, the organizations are able to take significant bold steps when it comes to rolling out services, or they are able to take even significantly bolder goals. Take, for example, Manish, right? He spoke about being able to roll out a product within 2 weeks, what was a process of 6 months earlier, right? That's a significantly strong goal, right? That they were able to achieve. I'll give you another example. Netflix. I mean, not many of us probably know, but this weekend Netflix is offering its services free of cost to all the users in India, right? You just need to subscribe, don't pay for anything. 48 hours is going to be free content. Now, how has Netflix been able to do that? Only because they have a strong technical backbone, which they are confident that they are going to be able to support maybe 100 million, maybe 200 million, maybe 300 million users on one go. So that is one thing that the technology has enabled for the companies. It has enabled scalability, it has enabled reliability, and it has helped them to reach out to a much wider base to get feedback from the customers, what they like, what they don't like. I mean, to the scales that things were not heard of, right?
Correct.
Think of 15, 20 years ago, you had PCs with maybe 128 or 512 KB memory. Today, you're talking about phones having 1,000 times memory of that. Those are the things which have enabled customer experience, customers, technology consumption, and in turn consuming any of the products, be it in the fintech space, edutech space, or in the insurance space.
Fabulous. Thanks for that, Tarun. And clearly, technology has leapfrogged, but at the same time, also the elements or the tools that marketers and businesses have to take care of this has changed. So that's a great note at which to end this. I think some fantastic input from each of you. Thank you so much, Madhu, Swapna, Anand, Manish, and Tarun. I think that was a great interaction. Lots of learnings, lots of interesting insights, and great that you could spend your time and share experiences. Now I'll hand it over back to our MC Shika. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks, everyone.
Lloyd, thank you for handing over the strings back to me. Well, yes, security and CX walking hand in hand, and some very pertinent perspective, and especially with the energy that you drove the panel. So big thank you to the panel as well as to you. Thank you very much.
Bye now.
I'm sure there is, for our attendees out there, there's something that's like a major learning from this discussion. So make sure that you're tweeting, you're talking about it on social media using our official hashtag that you can see on your screens right there. And in the meanwhile, remember, you've got some few moments and, just that last leg where you can still make those impressions, click those pictures at the photo op, and stand a chance to win those amazing Amazon gift vouchers worth ₹2 lakh. Well, I never miss on that. So keep doing that. Explore the networking lounge and especially the experience zone, our partner exhibits, talking to them, whatever you're learning, and in a way that you can connect those learnings with what is being offered by our partners. I think that will just be the perfect sync out there. So on that note, please allow me to lead you all into the next session. So, well, yes, when we talk about, things like automation, marketing automation and all of that, when that goes to the next level, well, yes, the inefficiencies also might automate to the next level. So what do we really do to prevent it, and how do we manage this entire saga? We're going to talk about that and more with a voice that's a strong one. So stay tuned with us. Just in case if you have missed on filling in the feedback forms, our feedback forms and the partner feedback forms, do that right away, because we're going to be back right in a bit on your screens. See you.